David Johnston.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Can I start by commending what the Honourable Lady for Luton South said quite early in her speech? I got to know her a bit through the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme, and I know it will have been a very difficult thing to talk about, but it was powerful and an important message to people to check themselves for cancer, because it can affect any of us. I have to start with my own note of sadness on behalf of the local community that I represent, because last week we lost someone called Hasnath Mia, who was a sort of champion of a local hero in the Didcot area where I live. He had been homeless and for part of his life, and had been helped by the Didcot community, including through free meals, to get back on his feet. And he swore that if he was ever in a position to help other people, he would do so. He had a hugely successful restaurant called Indian Dream, and in the pandemic began giving free meals to key workers, but also to the homeless, to young carers, just in the way that he had been given food. In total, he gave over 10,000 free meals away. And he's very sadly died at the age of just 49, having had a stroke 10 days, 2 weeks ago, and not recovered from it. And there's been a huge outpouring of grief in the Didcot community for him. May he rest in peace. My condolences to his family. A couple of greatest hits as far as things I talk about in this chamber. The first about the lack of GP surgeries. We've had huge population growth right across my constituency, particularly in the Didcot area. These GP surgeries are always promised, they never arrive. This is a total failure of local council and local health leaders who say they're committed to this, keep promising it's going to happen, particularly in the run-up to local elections, and then these things never emerge. Meanwhile, our existing GP surgeries work flat out all year round and are now closing their books because they simply can't cope. They don't have the buildings to be able to take on more people, never mind having the doctors and so on to be able to take more people. We've got to make progress on this, and I'll be talking about it even more next year. And then it's 58 years this month since Grove Station, or as some prefer, Wantage Road Station, closed under the beaching cuts. We have bid to the process for new stations. The department was impressed with the bid. We weren't successful this time. I will keep going until we're successful. But again, it's an area with huge population growth. It makes economic sense, social sense, and environmental sense. And I am absolutely determined that we should have this station reopened. Sticking with the environment just for a moment, as some members of this House will know, I am the lead sponsor of the local electricity bill, which now has 314 members of this House in support of it, totally cross-party initiative. Tantalisingly close to half the members of this place supporting it. If you're not, please take a look at it. This is a complete no-brainer, because our local communities would very much like to be generating more renewable energy, but the startup costs for them at the moment are far, far too high. And what this bill aims to do is essentially remove those startup costs so that the energy that they generate will be able to be sold to the local community. Now, we've worked hard with the campaign team and BEIS officials to change the nature of this bill so that it will be much more about local energy, renewable energy sources being acting as sleeves for bigger suppliers and teaming up with them for metering and maintenance purposes, so that we can have a flowering of renewable energy, which is something, as I say, lots of people locally would like to be able to do. So I'm hopeful that we can make progress with the government on that next year, particularly in relation to the energy bill forthcoming. And then just a couple of other things before I close in relation to things I've done for the first time this year. Firstly, holding a crime summit locally, because I was getting increasing reports of crime from local people, all sorts of things, business break-ins, drug dealing, all kinds of things. But the thing that came up probably most from the people who attended this, which I held with Thames Valley Police, was antisocial behaviour. And I do think we have a tendency to underplay antisocial behaviour, that if things don't involve great violence, if it isn't murders or your house being robbed, we don't take it as seriously as we should. But for people who are not used to it, in an area where they haven't seen it before and they suddenly see an increase in antisocial behaviour, it's very unsettling. And I'm going to be working with the police, whose response I was pleased with. They're going to go away and look at how they handle these things. Working with the police more on that next year. And then finally, I started a work experience campaign with local employers this year, partly because it was what I used to do in my previous life as a charity chief exec, but partly because it all but disappeared during the COVID period. And I would encourage members of this house who aren't doing that sort of thing already to do it, because it's absolutely clear that lots of employers have simply got out of the habit of providing work experience as a result of COVID. They've got a lot of their staff working at home. They sometimes offer virtual work experience, which is fine and better than nothing, but it's not the same as being in the workplace. And I was really pleased with all the employers that got involved in this, Rebellion, Hachette and Astroscale, lots of others. And I think the young people gained a huge amount from being able to be in the workplace with people rather than just looking at things through a screen. So I'll be doing more on that next year as well. Mr. Deputy Speaker, best wishes to you for a very happy Christmas, and everybody else who works here too.
And the Honourable Member for Wantage spoke very movingly about Hasnat, his constituent, who were very sorry to hear of his passing, but it sounds like he had lived an incredible life, and he's left a very important legacy for his constituency.